Hey guys, it's Sasha. The UK economy has crashed into a recession in 2023. In the last two quarters, in Q3 and Q4 of last year, the UK GDP fell 0.1 and 0.3% in two consecutive quarters. The quarter before that, it was flat. So the UK has had no economic growth for the last three quarters, which is confusing because Rishi Sunak has been saying that the UK economy is doing better than pretty much every other country in the world, right? I am going to tell you exactly what I think about all of this, and I'm going to share my analysis. I apologize in advance, but my analysis may contain some bad words. So if you're an easily offended snowflake, instead of leaving a comment, you might want to go and watch a different video. So I remember when the Ofgem energy price cap fell, which artificially reduced inflation, Rishi Sunak was all over X. He was posting how he defeated inflation like 10 times in one day. He was so eager to tell us that his plan was working. But this morning, when the news came out that he actually fucked the UK economy, Rishi Sunak is for some reason not posting anything on X, not busy congratulating himself. Strange that. Anyway, before we get into the detailed analysis, when I saw the data this morning, I did have a bit of a problem where my brain just couldn't compute, because when I looked at this little table, I was immediately a bit confused because you see the quarterly numbers here, it's plus 0.2 in Q1 and then nothing and then minus 0.4 in the second half of the year. But up here at the top, it says plus 0.1%, and that's meant to be kind of the product of the four numbers below, I guess. That's kind of how it looks, right? And it says seasonally adjusted, which I don't know, but how do you seasonally adjust a number that covers the entire year? I mean, it's all the fucking seasons, right? So to educate myself, I went and found the underlying numbers. And here is the quarterly data. The latest version of all these numbers is on the right. So the Q4 2023 number is 566,695. The Q4 2022 number is 568,034. So over the last year, UK GDP has gone down from 568,000 whatever to 566,000 whatever. But if you math the math, Rishi Sunak style, that means it's gone up 0.1%. Makes total sense. I unfortunately did skip the GDP calculation course in my master's degree, and this is why I am too dumb to understand that 566 is in fact 0.1% higher than 568. But there is a slightly different data set. Maybe that's the one that gets published separately with monthly data in it. So I went and looked at that too. And here is the total GDP number in that left-hand column. The other columns are some of the segments. And 2022 December is 101.9853, but 2023 December is 101.9744. And of course, if you work that out, 101.97 is in fact 0.1% higher than 101.98. Now, before the smartasses do turn up in the comments section, the reason that it doesn't add up really is because they use the average of the GDP flow through the year and then compare it to the average of the previous year. So they're not actually showing you what GDP did in 2023, although that is exactly what they want you to think because that's what it says in the table. Unfortunately, the reality in the UK is this: GDP fell in 2023, the whole year. All right, when I was reading the Financial Times this morning, I saw this nice looking chart. You can see how the UK GDP was going up and up and up for 12 years since the financial crash. And well, then in February 2020, Rishi Sunak became Chancellor. And if you're wondering where that is on the graph, that point is right here. If you're curious and you know all of this is a product of the pandemic, and of course the UK is just the same as every country, here is the equivalent US chart. This is the real GDP chart, which is accounting for inflation because that's how the UK numbers are reported, so that we're comparing like for like. And I leveled the index on this chart so that it's at 100 in February 2020, just like the UK one. And you can see that in Q4 2023, the US one is at 109.7 and the UK one is at 101.6. So in the 4 years that we've had, the UK economy has gone precisely nowhere, while the US economy has grown almost 10%. Well done, Rishi. You really killed it with the economy. Absolutely killed it. The thing is, look at this table again though, because the GDP number on the left is not even the really important one. It's not as important as the second column, which is GDP per head, because net migration to the UK has exploded in the last 3 years. And at the end of the day, the GDP per person in the country is a far more relevant metric to how people live. It shows if the economy is actually improving in reality. And the answer is No, it is not. GDP per head has been negative for the whole of 2023. And then I went and had a look at what happened in 2022. And in 2022, it was also negative. So the fact is, the economy in the UK has been in a recession for the last 2 years in reality. This is a really big problem. And of course, absolutely nobody could have seen it coming. This was impossible to predict way ahead of time. But yesterday, new inflation data was published for the UK. And the overall CPIH inflation stayed at 4.2%. Owner-occupier costs, which is a fake metric anyway because it doesn't include mortgages, went up from 5.3 to 5.4%. And most importantly, services inflation went up from 6 to 6.1%. In this latest data from 2 days ago, wages in the UK are still going up at a rate of 5.8% year on year because the UK is going through a wage price spiral. And this is a big problem because this is making the inflation problem and the economy problem both a lot worse. But having read all of this over the last 2 days, what are the news saying this morning? Well, of course, the UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has come out and said that the UK recession was actually all part of their plan.
We always expected growth to be weaker while we prioritised tackling inflation. That means higher interest rates. And that's the right thing to do because you can't have long-term healthy growth with high inflation.
So yeah, of course, the recession is intentional. The UK government knew all along that they actually need to go into a recession because that's how they're going to get rid of inflation. Well, duh. But wait, what's this thing? What is this on the screen? It says Prime Minister outlines his 5 key priorities for 2023. And number 2 on the list is economy growing. Wait, I thought they said that their plan was to make it go down. I don't get it. So economy growing in 2023. That didn't quite happen. What happened with the other financial promises? So we will make sure our national debt is falling so that we can secure the future of public services. Okay, debt falling. Borrowing in the financial year to December 2023 was £11.1 billion more than in the same 9 months in the previous year. So national debt is growing even faster than last year. Okay. And he said he'd also halve inflation, which, well, I guess they technically did, because mortgage costs are not included in UK inflation data, the biggest single payment that people make and the one that is exploding at the moment. And the electricity and gas price data in the inflation report is fake, because this winter, the electricity bills and gas bills are the highest they have ever been, and they are higher than they were a year ago because last year there was a £400 government subsidy. But the inflation data says that the energy bills are lower. Well, wouldn't you know it? So the real rate of inflation that people are actually experiencing, they're actually paying, has most definitely not halved, as people's monthly mortgage payments are going up 30 or 50% right now. But while all of this is happening, apparently investors are betting that the Bank of England will cut rates in June. The likelihood of a rate cut in June has increased from 65% to 75% this morning after the GDP data came out. But the reasons might be a little bit different, because sometimes you cut interest rates because you don't need to have them high anymore, but quite a lot of the time you cut them because your economy just got tanked and you need to try to stimulate it. But we're now staring at a very different kind of rate cut. Inflation is still sitting hot at 4.2%, and all the key indicators are looking bad. Wage growth in the UK is still high, but the UK government and the Bank of England over the last 4 years have successfully deployed the FAFO strategy. And the FAFO strategy, of course, is fucking around and then finding out. Now they are finding out that they're in a situation where the UK economy is actively self-destructing. On a per-person basis, GDP fell 0.7% last year. That's pretty big. I know, it's incredible, right? You can't believe it either. Instead of taking action and, fixing the problems, we had the dimwits in UK Parliament playing politics and changing the Prime Minister every week. Oh, that was fun. Do you know why, though, the UK economy is collapsing? Because the fiscal and monetary response during COVID and since COVID has been a complete disaster, because the UK government have no fucking idea what they are doing. I said it at the time, right on this channel, I've said it every single fucking month, and you know what? I do not take much pleasure in being right on this one. You know why GDP in the UK is collapsing? Because people can't afford to pay their bills, and so they're sure as hell are not paying for other stuff either. In a recent study, it turned out that the people in the UK have the most expensive electricity bills in the world. In January 2019, when the energy price cap was first introduced, the price cap on gas in the UK was £3.73. Today, the price cap on gas is £7.42, so it's 100% more expensive. Here is the price of natural gas as a commodity in the UK. In January 2019, it was about 63p per therm. Today, it's 62p per therm. And what's this? Oh wait, Centrica, the company that owns British Gas, just increased their dividend payments by 33%. Well, I never. Why was that? What happened? Oh, it was after a surge in its retail division's annual profits. No way! The problem is, the media don't even know just how much money British Gas is making from fucking over their customers. The Guardian wrote, British Gas profits leap from 72 million to 751 million in a year. And, well, that's kind of true because look at the report that came out this morning. On page 5, right up front over here, it does say that British Gas Residential made £751 million in profit in 2023. But British Gas has 10 million customers. That's only £75 per household. Where did the rest of the money go? Well, to understand that, you have to remember that energy companies create this huge web of different entities, different registrations, so that profits can be moved along and recorded in a different place. It's not the residential customers that are earning all the profits, it's this other part over here that happens to be supplying the gas or a trading arm or something. You, the customer, are still paying for that profit because you are paying the bills, and that money just gets moved along through the organization. It's just being recorded further down the food chain. But how do you avoid actually having to print this data? How do you get away with it? Well, imagine if you had a trading arm that literally trades gas and electricity at the same time as you supply those two things to your customers. And imagine if that part of your business was allowed to make unlimited profits because they can trade against the customers paying the stupid high rates while knowing what the strategy for charging the customer is at the same time. And imagine if you could legally choose to not disclose that. Well, just purely hypothetically, of course, this is obviously completely untrue, would never actually happen. This is completely not what is happening here. Because imagine if, as part of your accounting measures, you said something like exceptional items and certain remeasurements are excluded because these items are considered by the directors to distort the group's underlying business performance. Because, well, if people actually knew how much they were getting fucked by the energy companies, they might get a bit unhappy. So best not to include those exceptional items in certain remeasurements because they might distort how much money you're actually making. How much money is it, you wonder? Well, £3.8 billion worth of profits that came from stuff to do with remeasurement and the settlement of derivative contracts. Stuff to do with trading, which is about £400 per customer. Now, I'm sure it's absolutely nothing. Don't look there. The huge increase in dividends this year is just a complete coincidence as well. Where was I? Oh yeah. Why is the UK economy crashing? Well, it's because the UK government would rather let the energy companies take the fucking piss instead of reining them in and nationalizing them and putting people in prison because they are using their illegal monopoly to profiteer. It's because people cannot afford to pay for their mortgages. And look, we have data on this too. Brand new, came in just a week ago. There is a 25% increase in the number of mortgages that are now behind in payments. This is going up quite fast. The increase for buy-to-let landlords is 124%. So yeah, rents are going to have to go up as well because those guys can't afford their mortgages either. But the worrying data is down here because look, the people who are only just starting to fall behind on their mortgage payments is increasing even faster. That number is up 36% year on year, and the graph is even steeper. And the people who are maybe a few payments down are this black line, and you can see what both of those lines are doing. People's mortgage payments are going up and people's rent payments are going up, but people can't afford to pay them. It's not rocket science. And when people can't afford to pay their mortgage and their electricity bill, they sure as fuck are not going to go out there and spend money to pump the country's GDP. Is the UK government going to do anything about this? Most definitely not, because they have no idea how they can even remotely maybe start to address this issue. They have no fucking idea what it is that they are doing. But don't worry, Jeremy Hunt said in an interview this morning that the economy is doing great, it's going to go up a lot this year. And of course, he sold marmalade in Japan, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. Rishi Sunak said that we have to keep doing the same thing. We've got to stick the course because it's going to deliver on his promises. Which reminds me of that Einstein quote that said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Although that quote doesn't actually apply, of course, because it says that you have to be doing the same thing over and over. And of course, the UK government is not actually doing anything because they are a despicable bunch of lying scumbags who only care about lining their pockets and the pockets of their mates.